You are standing on the first tee. Your hands feel steady. You take the club back the same way you did yesterday, and the ball flies straight and true again. Now imagine that happening on every swing, at 70, at 75, at 80, without lessons, without new clubs, without a single dollar spent. That is not a fantasy. There is a drill, older than any teaching gadget on the market, that trains your swing to repeat itself like a heartbeat. And the men and women who used it did not have launch monitors or private coaches. They had a handkerchief and a knife. I am going to show you exactly what a one-legged golf professional discovered in 1916 that keeps a senior swing repeatable for the rest of your life, and why almost nobody teaches it anymore. I remember the exact moment my own swing fell apart. It was a cool October morning at my home course, the 9th fairway, and I hit 3 balls in a row that went 3 completely different directions. I stood there feeling like a stranger in my own body. If you have a fixed budget and the same clubs you have owned for years, stay with me because this cost you nothing. Let me tell you how bad it got before it got better. For about 8 years, my golf game came apart one piece at a time. In my late 50s, I could still break 90 on a good day. By 63, I was lucky to break 100. The frustrating part was not the score. It was that I never knew which swing was going to show up. One hole, I would strike it clean. The next hole, my hands would take over, the club would come from somewhere strange, and the ball would dive into the trees. I did what I think most of us do. I decided the problem was my equipment, or my knowledge, or my age. So I went looking for answers, and I opened my wallet. I bought a driver that promised 20 more yards. I bought a training aid that strapped around my arms. I bought another one that beeped when I swung too fast. I took a package of 5 lessons from a young professional who filmed my swing on his phone and drew red lines all over it. He told me my swing plane was too flat, my wrist angle was wrong, and my hip rotation was insufficient. I nodded like I understood. I went home with a list of 8 things to think about at the top of my backswing. Here is what happened. I got worse. Much worse. Because a swing is not a list of 8 things. A real golf swing happens in about 1.5 seconds. There is no time to run down a checklist. And the harder I tried to control every little piece, the more mechanical and jerky I became. My tempo was gone. My rhythm was gone. I was standing over the ball tight as a fence wire, and a tight golfer is a lost golfer. I want you to hear this clearly, because I wish someone had told me back then. The problem was never my body. The problem was that I had been handed a way of thinking about the golf swing that was designed to keep me confused. And confused people keep spending money. That is the part that still makes me a little angry. And I will get to exactly who benefits. But first I need you to understand where the answer came from, because it did not come from a shiny store. It came from a man who had every reason to give up golf entirely. His name was Ernest Jones. He was a young golf professional in England, and he was good. In the years right before the First World War, he was playing the kind of golf that turns heads. Then the war came. He went to fight in France, and in 1916, at a place called Loos, an explosion took his right leg below the knee. Think about that for a moment. A professional golfer loses a leg. In that era, there was no talk of adaptive sport, no carbon fiber, no rehabilitation program built for athletes. By every reasonable measure, his golf life was finished. Except it was not. Because just a few months after losing his leg, Ernest Jones went out and played 18 holes on one leg, balancing on a wooden peg, and he shot an 83. Sit with that number. 83 on one leg. Then, once he was fitted with a proper artificial limb, he went lower still, shooting in the 70s again. Now ask yourself the obvious question. How on earth does a man with one leg shoot in the 70s when I, with 2 perfectly good legs, could barely break 100? The answer is the whole secret of this video, and it is going to change how you think about every swing you take from now on. Ernest Jones figured out something that all the muscle and all the leverage in the world cannot replace. He realized that a golf swing is not a push, not a hit, not a violent act of strength. It is a swing. A true, free, pendulum-like swing of the club head, controlled by feel, not by force. When he lost his leg, he lost the ability to muscle the ball. He had no choice but to let the club do the work. And when he did, the ball went farther and straighter than it had when he was healthy and strong. He spent the rest of his life teaching this one idea. He moved to the United States in the 1920s, set up a teaching studio in New York City, right above a store on Fifth Avenue, and taught tens of thousands of golfers. He wrote it all down in a book. The first one came out in 1937, and a later, fuller version titled Swing the Clubhead became something close to a Bible for people who really understood the game. And here is the piece that matters most for you and me, sitting here today on a careful budget. His most powerful teaching tool cost nothing. It was a pocket knife tied to a handkerchief. I will show you exactly how to use it. But before I do, I need to tell you why a method this simple, this proven, and this cheap quietly vanished from the way golf is taught. Because the reason is not innocent. Let me ask you something. When was the last time a golf professional, a big equipment company, or a fancy indoor studio made money by telling you the answer was free? That is the heart of it. Ernest Jones taught that the golf swing is one simple motion, learned by feel, that almost anyone can groove in a few weeks with a household object. That is a wonderful truth for you. It is a terrible business model for an entire industry. Think about what has grown up around the golf swing since Jones died in 1965. There is a driver released every single year, each one promising distance the last one somehow failed to deliver. There are training aids by the hundreds, strapping and beeping and buzzing, most of them ending up in the garage within a month. There are lesson packages that break your swing into a dozen positions, each position a reason to book the next lesson. And there is a whole culture that quietly tells older golfers that their best days are behind them, that the answer is always something new you must buy. I fell for all of it. I spent, and I am not exaggerating, well over $2,000 across those years chasing a repeatable swing. $2,000 when the answer was a 50-cent handkerchief and an idea from a man who played on one leg. The mechanical method of teaching took over for a simple reason. You cannot sell simplicity twice, but you can sell complexity forever. Every new position they give you to worry about is another thing that can go wrong, and everything that can go wrong is another product, another lesson, another gadget. Complexity is not a bug in the modern golf business. It is the whole engine, and the group that gets hurt worst is us, older golfers. Because when your body loses a little flexibility and a little strength, the mechanical, muscle-it approach falls apart fastest. We are the ones who most need the feel-based swing, and we are the ones it has been most thoroughly hidden from. So let me pull it back into the light, starting with why this works so well for a body that is not 25 anymore. Here is what Ernest Jones understood that modern teaching forgets. The club head is the only part of the golf club that touches the ball, so the club head is the only part that truly matters. If you can learn to feel the weight of the club head and swing it freely back and through on a smooth arc, your body will organize itself around that swing automatically. Your hips, your shoulders, your wrists, they will do the right thing on their own because they are responding to the swing instead of trying to create it piece by piece. This is not folk wisdom. Modern science backs it hard. There is a well-known study of golf swing tempo that measured the best players in the world, and it found something remarkable. Nearly all of the finest golfers share the same rhythm ratio. The backswing takes about 3 times as long as the downswing, 3-to-1. It does not matter if the player swings fast overall or slow overall. The ratio stays the same, 3-to-1, backswing to downswing. Now here is why that should make you sit up. That 3-to-1 rhythm is exactly what a freely swinging weight on a string produces on its own. A pendulum does not need to be told the ratio. It swings back slowly, pauses at the top, and accelerates down through the bottom, all by the laws of nature. When Ernest Jones handed a student a knife tied to a handkerchief and told them to swing it, he was teaching that perfect 3-to-1 tempo decades before anyone had the equipment to measure it. He knew by feel what science would only prove much later. So let us get to what you actually do. This is the drill. This is the part I want you to try in your living room this week. Take a handkerchief, a small hand towel, or a bandana. Tie a light weight into one corner. A pocket knife works, exactly like Jones used, but so does a heavy key ring, a small padlock, or a fishing weight tied into the cloth. You want something with a little heft, but nothing heavy enough to strain you. Now hold the free end between your thumb and first two fingers, the same light grip you would use to hold a small bird without hurting it. Let the weight hang down. Then, using only your hands and wrists at first, swing it back and forth like the pendulum on an old grandfather clock. Back and through, do not force it. Feel the weight pull the cloth tight at the bottom of each swing. That tightness, that gentle tug, is the feeling of the club head swinging freely. That is the exact sensation you have been missing. Now here is the magic. Try to make the weight swing on a smooth, even arc, the same distance back as it goes through, with an unhurried rhythm. You will notice something right away. The moment you try to jerk it or force it, the cloth goes slack and the weight wobbles and the whole thing falls apart. You physically cannot muscle a weight on a string. It will only obey a smooth swing. The handkerchief refuses to let you cheat. That is why this tool is genius, and that honesty in your hands is the same honesty your irons demand from the turf, which is exactly where most of us over 70 lose the round. Because a free-swinging club head is only half the story. The other half is where the ball sits, where your weight rests, and what your divot is quietly telling you about your contact. That is the work I could not fit into a video, so I wrote it down properly. 3 books that take this feel-based idea and finish the job. Ball first contact from tight lies, the tension-free grip that stops you muscling the ball, and the 10-minute carpet program that rebuilds distance off the tee with the clubs already in your garage. No gym, no lessons, no new driver, written for a man who still knows how to play and can take it straight to this weekend's round. To get them, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment, and the books are yours today. Now, back to the handkerchief, because there is a reason it refuses to lie to you the way your club does. Your golf club lets you cheat. It is stiff, so you can force it, muscle it, and hit at the ball, and you get away with it just enough to keep the bad habit alive. The handkerchief will not let you. It gives you instant, honest feedback on every single swing. Swing it right, it sings. Swing it wrong, it collapses. Do this for 3 or 4 minutes a day, that is all. Swing it with both hands together, then try just your lead hand, then your trail hand. Feel how the weight wants to fall and gather speed all on its own if you simply let it. You are not building muscle. You are teaching your nervous system the one feeling that makes a golf swing repeat. Now I know exactly what some of you are thinking, and I want to speak to you directly for a minute. Maybe you are thinking this sounds fine for someone with a big backyard, or a garage, or a membership at a nice club. Maybe you live in an apartment. Maybe your knees or your back keep you from getting to the course much anymore. Maybe money is tight enough that even a bucket of range balls feels like a splurge. I want you to stay right here, because this next part was built for you, and it is the reason I believe this method is a gift for older golfers on a fixed income more than anyone else. You do not need a course. You do not need a range. You do not need a single golf ball. The entire drill happens with a handkerchief and a weight, in the space beside your kitchen table or at the foot of your bed. You can do it sitting in a chair if standing for long is hard. You can do it with one hand if you have to. It asks nothing of your wallet and almost nothing of your body, and yet it trains the most valuable thing in golf, which is a repeatable rhythm. Let me give you the indoor progression, step by step, so you have a full practice you can start tonight. Start seated. Sit tall in a firm chair. Hold your weighted handkerchief and swing it gently at your side, back and through 20 times. Feel the weight load the cloth at the bottom. Keep your grip soft. This alone wakes up the feel in your hands. Next, stand up if you can, feet close together, almost touching. This is important. When your feet are together, you cannot sway or lunge or use your body to force the club. You are forced to stay balanced and let the swing do the work. Swing the handkerchief in front of you now, mimicking a real golf swing, back and through, letting the weight reach the same height on both sides. If you feel yourself losing balance, that is your body confessing that you were using sway instead of swing. The feet together position quietly fixes it. Then, pick up an actual club, but hold it upside down. Grip it down by the head so the light grip end is swinging through the air. Now swing it and listen for the swoosh. Try to make the swoosh happen out in front of you, past where the ball would be, not behind it. A golfer who releases too early, who casts and throws the club head away at the top, makes the swoosh too soon. When you learn to delay it and feel that whoosh out past the bottom, you have found the free release Ernest Jones spent his life teaching. This costs nothing, and you can do it in a hallway. Finish by going back to the handkerchief and swinging it slowly, eyes closed, 10 times. Eyes closed removes the ball, removes the target, removes all the anxiety, and leaves only the feeling of the swinging weight. That feeling is the whole thing. Burn it into your memory. 4 little steps. No course, no range, no money, no partner. A renter in a small apartment can do every bit of it. And within 2 or 3 weeks of a few minutes a day, something starts to happen when you finally do get to hit a real ball. Your swing feels like it belongs to you again. I felt it myself. Standing on that same 9th fairway where it had all fallen apart, about a month after I started swinging that silly handkerchief in my den every evening. I took the club back slow. I felt the head gather and fall, and the ball came off the face with a sound I had not heard in years. Pure, solid, and the next one did the same, and the one after that. For the first time in nearly a decade, I knew what was going to happen before it happened. But feeling it once is not the same as owning it forever, and this is where the deepest layer of the secret lives. Because you might be asking, if this method is so powerful, and it was written down in books, and this man taught thousands of people in New York for decades, how did it get so thoroughly buried that your own golf professional never mentioned it once? That is the question that led me to the finale, and to the specific piece of forgotten instruction that ties this whole thing together. I went looking. I read Ernest Jones's own writing, the 1937 book, and the later Swing the Clubhead. And buried in his teaching, mostly ignored today, is one small instruction that turns the handkerchief drill from a nice warm-up into a permanent, self-correcting swing for life. This is the part almost nobody talks about, and it is what I promised you at the very start. Here it is. Jones taught that you should never practice the handkerchief swing by counting or by forcing a rhythm. Instead, he taught his students to swing to a simple, steady inner beat, the way you would hum a slow waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The pa-pa of an old Viennese waltz. He would actually have students say it aloud while they swung, so the backswing filled the long first beat, and the through swing landed on the light second and third beats. That 3 count is the exact same 3-to-1 ratio that science measured in the greatest players in the world, discovered by a one-legged man decades before the machines existed to prove it. But that is not the deepest part. The deepest part, the piece that makes it repeatable forever, is this. Jones insisted that you must feel the swing as one continuous motion with no separate parts. Not a backswing and then a downswing. One swing, like the pendulum of a clock, which never stops at the bottom and never truly stops at the top, it simply flows from one direction into the other. He told students that the single greatest destroyer of a repeatable swing is the pause where the golfer collects himself and tries to start the downswing as a separate action. The moment you make the down move a separate move, you introduce a decision, and a decision made in a fraction of a second is where everything goes wrong. So the finale, the thing I want you to carry out to your garage this weekend, is this exact practice. Take your weighted handkerchief. Hum a slow waltz under your breath. 1, 2, 3. Swing the weight in time, and make it flow with no stop at either end. One continuous circle of motion in time with the beat. Do it for 3 minutes. Then pick up your club and do the same thing, humming the same waltz, feeling the same unbroken flow. You are no longer swinging a golf club. You are keeping time with a rhythm that lives inside you, and rhythm, unlike muscle, does not fade with age. A 78-year-old can hold a 3-count waltz just as steadily as a 25-year-old. That is why this swing lasts forever when the muscle-based swing crumbles. This is why Ernest Jones, on one leg, shot in the 70s. He was not stronger, he was not younger, he simply refused to break the swing into pieces, and he kept perfect time. He had lost the ability to muscle the ball, so he was forced to discover the one thing that never abandons you: timing. Feel. The free swing of the weight. Someone kept this alive. There were teachers, quiet ones, who studied under Jones or read his books and passed the handkerchief drill down, student to student, all through the decades when the industry was busy selling complexity. They kept the flame going in small pockets, on public courses and in modest lesson bays, mostly to older players who needed it. Now it is in your hands. You are the next one to carry it. I think about what I would have saved if I had known this at 60. Not just the $2,000. The years. The rounds I dreaded instead of enjoyed. The mornings I stood over the ball afraid of my own hands. All of it gone, because I believed the answer had to be complicated and expensive, when a man who fought in France in 1916 had already proven it was neither. You did not just learn a golf drill today, you reclaimed something that was quietly taken from a whole generation of golfers, the simple, freeing truth that the swing was never meant to be hard, and it was never meant to cost a fortune, and it does not have to leave you just because the years pile up. You are the kind of person who trusts a proven idea over a shiny promise, who would rather understand something once than rent an answer forever, and that instinct just saved your golf game. Now I want to hear from you. When you try the handkerchief and waltz drill this week, I want you to tell me one thing in the comments. Did the weight sing at the bottom of the swing, or did it wobble and collapse the first few times? Be honest, because the wobble is where the learning starts, and I read every single reply. And tell me where you are watching from, and how old you are, because I have a feeling the golfers who benefit most from this are the ones the industry gave up on years ago, and I would love to prove that here. If this reached you, subscribe and stand with the rest of us who are digging these lost, practical methods back out of the ground and putting them to work the way our parents and grandparents did without a second thought. Next time, I'm going to show you the forgotten putting method, older than the modern stroke, that a group of players used to sink short putts under pressure without ever getting the yips, and it too costs absolutely nothing. Bring your handkerchief. I will see you there. Before you go, let me say one thing. Today I gave you the overview, but the full Ernest Jones handkerchief drill, step by step, lives inside the Wiser Living Circle, picking up right where we stopped. In there, you can ask me your own swing questions, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You'd be joining thousands of practical seniors just like you. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime, one click, no risk. Now that your swing is steady, let's fix the part that cost you the most strokes. In the next video, I'll show you a simple putting secret that means you'll never need another lesson. It's starting right here.